I've been thinking a lot recently and talking quite a bit on these videos about poetics and about poetic cognition, which is the idea that the way that the mind works is through using processes which are more usually associated with poetry, things like metaphor, metanymy, synecdoche, irony, those kind of tropes. What I'm trying to work through in my mind now is kind of locating moments in my day-to-day life when that poetry becomes obvious, if you like, or when it's more obvious than others. And I suppose the example I'm trying to think into at the moment is to do with times when I use or think in terms of quite a technical language, and think in terms of details and specific examples, and other times when I use natural language, when I just speak in English or listen in English or describe things and have things described to me in English, and perhaps in more general terms without examples. And I think that happens quite a bit in science. I mean, many years ago when I first left school, before I moved into the arts, which is what I do now, I worked for about 10 years in laboratories, in microbiology laboratories initially, and then kind of chemistry laboratories within industry. So I wouldn't claim to be any kind of an expert, but I have a kind of passing familiarity with the language of those particular disciplines. And I can pull out concrete examples from my own experience of working with the materials associated with those businesses, those disciplines. And I kind of have direct access to methods and statistical tools, and the whole kind of rigmarole around that, really. But other branches of science, and I'm just staying in science for a minute. Other branches of science I know almost nothing about. I only know what I've seen on television or watched on videos or looked in popular science books. Things like cosmology. I've read about cosmology. I've read the big writers, Stephen Hawking and people like this. But this is popularized cosmology, and it has all those hallmarks of popularism. It's beautifully written quite often. It really gives you a clear picture of what what the discipline is, what the ideas are, but it leaves out all the technical detail, none of the equations, none of the complexities are there, none of the specific examples perhaps. And so the information I'm getting, it's really hard to describe actually my kind of orientation to this, but it feels as if there's something quite blurred. As if I'm kind of imagining it as the bits of science that I feel like I've got some kind of a purchase on, a kind of personal purchase on, are almost like when you're looking at something and the centre of that thing is very much in focus, the bit that's across from the fovea of the eye. So I can see that bit of science in focus. But the rest of science, I've got a kind of general blurry picture of it. A blurry picture picked up from, as I say, popular science books and Horizon documentaries, that kind of thing. And it's beautifully coloured, and I can see the general shapes that are being given to me, and I can see the general outlines and the general movements that are taking place within it. But I don't know anything, because I've lost all the detail. That generality is, well, it's a bit like a Rothko painting, or a bit like a Jackson Pollock painting, or a bit like a de Stijl painting, or a Mondrian, or something like that. Around the edges of my focal point. So I think that's a kind of poetic effect. I think because I've accessed that scientific knowledge through natural language, which is leaving out all the telling detail, which is leaving out all the specificity. the only access I have to that is this kind of aesthetic, poetic access. Having said that, I'm not absolutely convinced that this stuff is in the focal point, the details about microbiology or bits of chemistry that I do know about. And again, I'm not actually claiming any kind of expertise here. It's a long time since I did that stuff. But that bit in the centre doesn't feel poetic because I can see the details. But I think, I kind of know that it is actually. There's a really nice book called Physics as Metaphor by Stephen Jones, something like that, which talks about that, about how metaphor plays itself out even in the most detailed stuff. But it really hides in plain sight at that point. So even though I can see the details, even though it's highly, I can focus upon it, and it doesn't have any of the blurry abstract expressionism of general science, I think hidden behind that clarity is this great poetic edifice. The poetry of reality, as Dawkins calls it.